Hello, good morning and good afternoon. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to welcome you to today's event. I am Tina Tran, State Director for AARP Texas. Thank you to the OUTWORDS Archive for inviting AARP to take part in today's important conversation. We are proud to support the mission of the OUTWORDS Archive to capture, preserve, and share the stories of LGBTQ plus elders and to build community and catalyze social change. Now more than ever, the work of the OUTWORDS Archive is mission critical. Discrimination and marginalization of LGBTQ plus individuals is still prevalent today, despite significant progress in recent years. The recent surge of anti-transgender legislation across the United States is alarming and threatens to push transgender individuals further into the margins of society. Your stories are worthy, important, and powerful. AAR believes that everyone deserves to age with dignity and that all people must be empowered with the tools, information, and resources to choose how they live as they age. And now on to today's important discussion on LGBTQ plus legal challenges in Texas and beyond, and what the path forward may look like with our very distinguished guests. It is my pleasure to introduce our host for today's event, Jack MacCarthy. Jack is an award-winning writer and artist, a non-binary human, and the communications director for the OUTWORDS Archive.
Thank you so much, Tina. It's such an honor to be here. Hello and welcome. My name is Jack MacCarthy. I am joining you from Los Angeles, California, where the OUTWORDS Archive is headquartered. I am on the traditional, ancestral, and stolen lands of the Tongva people. And as a guest institution on Tongva land, OUTWORDS makes Kuyam Nawa a recurring guest exchange to the Tongva Tarahat Pahava Conservancy, the Tongva-led organization who received the first return of land back to the Tongva people. If you'd like to learn more about how to pay a voluntary land tax to the Indigenous peoples in your own area, there's a link about how to do that in the chat. If you'd like to see closed captions for today's webinar, you can click the CC button at the bottom of your screen that says Show Captions. And if you have any tech issues today, our behind the scenes wizard is Rhyme Ramos from OUTWORDS. So feel free to reach out to Rhyme in the chat if you need any assistance. As mentioned, I'm the communications director of OUTWORDS. OUTWORDS captures, preserves, and shares the stories of LGBTQ plus elders to build community and catalyze social change. We were founded 7 years ago, and in that time, we've conducted nearly 300 interviews in 38 states plus Washington, D.C. And I am honored beyond belief to moderate this panel with 3 legendary OUTWORDS interviewees, Shannon Minter, Emma Colquitt-Sayers, and Judge Phyllis Frye. We're going to meet our 3 panelists through short video excerpts from their OUTWORDS interviews and then in person. So first, we're going to meet Shannon Minter. Shannon grew up in a close-knit family and faith community in East Texas. He has devoted virtually his entire career to the quest for LGBTQ legal equality. In 2003, he defended the custody rights of a transgender father. In 2008, he was lead counsel for same-sex couples in the case that ultimately instituted marriage equality in California. And in 2016, he secured an injunction to stop President Trump's proposed ban on transgender people in the military. Shannon has been decorated with too many awards to list here, among them the Ford Foundation's Leadership for a Changing World Award. He serves as legal director for National Center for Lesbian Rights, one of the nation's leading advocacy organizations for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, and on the boards of Faith in America and the Transgender Law and Policy Institute. And we're going to watch a bit of Shannon's OUTWORDS interview. So Rhyme, you can go ahead and roll that video.
I was born in 1961 in Texas, a rural part of Texas, East Texas. And it was a great place to be a kid. And run around in the woods and went hunting and fishing with my dad. And I didn't know that I was transgender. I couldn't really figure out what was going on, but I knew that I was attracted to girls. Well, my parents found out that I was had a girlfriend when I was 17. They were very upset and had all the mistaken information that a lot of people had then. They just thought I was doing something wrong and sinful, and it was just really hard to feel so alienated from my whole family. Figured out that I was transgender when I was about 35, and at that point they told me that I should not come home anymore. That if I came to see them, that it would, because you can't hide being transgender, and that they would have to move, I had a high school, my government teacher, Mr. Jackson. His name was Larry Jackson, and he was a very devout Christian and kind of a fundamentalist Christian, actually. But he, I think, saved my life, even though, based on his beliefs, he thought that, being gay was a sin, but he said it was not any worse than a lot of things he did. And he was, somehow, he just had a great intuition, I think, about how to talk to a gay kid, even though it didn't fit his worldview. It has only been in the last, few years that I've been able to reconnect with my faith, and that's been a really healing experience for me. And you can't just tell a kid like me, or a kid that's grown up in any kind of particular spiritual culture. It is a culture. It's a culture, and you can't just tell someone, oh, well, go to the Unitarian Church. It's like telling them, leave your culture behind. They need that culture. They need to be accepted in those terms. That is why I'm on the board of Faith in America. That's their whole mission, is to try to prevent that kind of damage from being done to young people. It's very focused on the harms to young people when anti-LGBT messages are conveyed through religion. I do not think that most people have any remote idea how damaging it is to give these kind of messages to young people. And when they do understand that, most people will stop doing it. They really will.
Thank you, Rhyme, for being our tech wizard. And thank you, Shannon. Shannon, you are on the front lines of the legal battles that are happening right now. And as we just saw in your video, you're also a person of faith. What is your perspective as a person of faith as you watch the ways that faith gets weaponized in attacks on our rights?
Yeah, hey, I just want to say thank you so much to AARP and Outwards for sponsoring this, and I'm so honored to be part of that Outwards project. I've told Mason Funk before, boy, y'all just caught me at a moment of when I was able to be very open and candid, and I shared things that I've really never shared before, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I'm so honored to be here with Judge Frye. I have to say that Phyllis Frye is the reason I am here and the reason for my any degree of professional success I have had. So it means a lot to be here with Judge Frye. Yeah, having faith, being a person of faith, is the single most important thing in my life. And I do know, as I was sharing firsthand, how devastating it is for kids to feel spiritually rejected, to feel not only rejected by parents and family, but to get the message that, even God doesn't care about them. And it is horrifying to see what's happening in the country today around amplifying that message in new ways that I thought we had even moved beyond. I sure hope that every person, whether you're a person of faith or not, but anybody who cares anything about children and their well-being, and who remembers how fragile we all are as kids and what it feels like to be picked on as a child, and how much it matters when adults step up and protect the child who's feeling unsafe or marginalized. I just hope that people in this country can get back in touch with that universal human experience, and be careful about what you're saying, about messages that we're hearing all the time that really are demonizing children, kids. And we saw that in history. We've been through this in history with, kids who are left-handed, or kids who had epileptic seizures, or who are from other, marginalized communities. And it's concerning how quickly that kind of rhetoric can escalate to a really, really frightening degree where people get hurt. So anyhow, I hope our country can come to its senses. And I hope that for goodness sakes, people of faith especially will be very cautious about not saying and doing things that cause harm to, precious young children.
Yeah. Yeah. And something that I love about that story you share in the video we just watched is this is someone who still believed what he believed. You don't have to change what you believe in order to treat people as human, and that he still showed you that kindness, even with the beliefs that he had.
Yeah, we need more of that. Yeah, absolutely, we can't stress enough. People can believe whatever they want to believe, or do believe, or have been grown up to believe. You can still be kind, and you can still make sure you do no harm to other folks.
Yes, yes, amen. Next up, we are going to meet Emma Colquitt-Sayers. For more than 3 decades, Emma has been a successful businesswoman specializing in medical technology in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Emma earned her MBA from Texas Women's University and attended Leadership Texas, a training program for women started by the late Governor Ann Richards. Emma sees herself as a servant leader, a person who leads by example and action. One of her first causes was Emma's Elves, which for 11 years provided holiday gifts and toys to needy kids. During the AIDS epidemic, Emma became involved with Oak Lawn Community Services, serving as board president in 1992. Under her leadership, Oak Lawn created LifeWalk, a major ongoing AIDS services fundraiser for Dallas. She has also served on many nonprofit boards, including the Coalition for Aging LGBT, Leadership Texas Alumni, and the Women's Athletics Advisory Board for Florida State University. So now we're going to watch Emma's video.
My grandmother had a garden, and the grandkids that lived in Hastings were expected to help her harvest that garden. And one of the things that she did was she had planted wonderful sweet potatoes. So she would plant sweet potatoes, and we would help her dig up the sweet potatoes, and we would share it with the neighbors. For me, it carried me, because if I'm sharing when I didn't have very much, how can I not share when I have attained a little? In '84, I was working at a hospital, and in the social services department, I heard them talking about how they're going to get families food and gifts for Christmas. I stopped at the social services office and said, what are you talking about? What do you need? She said, well, we have families that need food and presents and stuff. And so we started, they called it the Emma's Elves Project, and it ran for 11 years. During that time, Joan and I, we figured out we had bought presents and food and clothing for about 2,000 people. We had like 250 volunteers, most of which were the gay community in Dallas. And we bought incredibly. The gay community is a very giving community. It's a very giving, loving community. I think for people who don't see that or try to put that down, they're depriving themselves and the community itself a great opportunity to serve and to love each other, to help each other. How we got to get custody of Trinity, it was a long process. My mother kind of abandoned her. Trinity had never lived with her father. He was saying that the CPS in Dallas gave his daughter to 2 lesbians. And he didn't like that. He didn't think that was right. And Joan said, she said, Emma, I can't go to my maker knowing that this kid needs us and we don't help her. So we went through the courts and got custody of her. She came to live with us. And it was actually a little difficult for her once we got her, because keep in mind now she was 14. And at 14, when you've been beat down like that, it's hard to believe that when people start pouring love at you, you gotta go, why? Or is this short-lived, or am I gonna get this forever and ever? So she had some things she had to work through, and we allowed her to work through those things. And we are very proud of the woman she's becoming. Early on, I had that professional life I led, and I had a personal life I led, and John was in the personal side, but not so much the business side. But Trinity made that come together. It's kind of easy to feel good about yourself when your child feels good about you. She's not ashamed of us at all, and we're not ashamed of us. So that definitely has helped me to work through that piece.
Welcome, Emma.
Hi. Thank you for
Hi.
having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Emma, what's your perspective on this moment as a parent, both in what you're observing in your daughter and her peer group, and also from the perspective of having had your right to even be a parent challenged and attacked?
First of all, let me say, Senator, kind of like Shannon said earlier, it's a pleasure to be here with Judge Frye and Shannon. And though our situation was not so much labeled in transgender, but we still had to go through the feeling of not being good enough or not being the right people for the moment. And I'm very grateful that we got past all of that. First of all, let me say that I'm very honored. We are honored, John and I, to be proud to be parents of Trinity. And Trinity is a very special young lady. And it's interesting. One of the writers said one time that the caterpillar turns into the butterfly. And so, Trinity at 14 was probably a little caterpillar, but she was a good one. And now she is a butterfly, and she's just getting started. So we're excited as parents to watch her become the leader that I know she is. And it's interesting, Joan and I, we became parents to Trinity when we were a lot older. And we didn't know, there's no book, and that's whether you're gay or straight, there's no book you can go to and say, step 1, step 2, step 3. And so, but we did, what we found, the three of us, that we loved each other so much that we led with love and consistency. And so in that, there were such great opportunities for Trinity and for us too. We all grew as a family, and we're just honored and pleased to have her in our life forever. I think we will have her into eternity for sure.
Yeah. And hearing you talk about like the challenges and how you were able to meet those challenges because of the love, what do you wish that, like, in the light of all this legislation, what takeaway do you wish people would take from that?
I wish people would first understand that we're talking about children, be it transgender or straight, we're children, okay? And there's a need that as adults, I think we are responsible and are supposed to provide for children. But it's kind of sad to watch, particularly with the transgender, and I'm not, I'm learning, I'm more as much of a participant and as a eager listener as well, because the way transgender children, transgender people are treated in general is devastating. It's almost, it's unreal. And so I'm very happy to see people that we see Shannon and Coach Frye. It's like they're out there on the front lines and they're fighting, and we need to fight with them. With regard to the rights and challenges for Trinity, Joan and I, we didn't have, let me just correct something here. We didn't have any necessary challenges from the court as much as we had challenges from her parents, though she wasn't living with them. And also, I may say, the Native American nation of which Trinity was a part of. They were the ones that were really upset about us taking care of Trinity and would call in to the court hearings saying that they didn't think that Joan and I were fit to raise Trinity. And that, for me, was devastating, because of all the things I grew up giving. I learned to give from a very early age. And basically, we were helping a young lady who needed help. Trinity was, I knew Trinity was going to be special when I first met her, but she was 14 and she was basically raising herself. And there are so many things that need to happen as parents, and we have in many ways done a bad job. Some parents have done a bad job in raising their children and giving them that foundation in which to stand. But I saw all of that in Trinity. Joan did too. And we just knew that she needed a place that she could be safe, that she would not be abused, that she would be loved. And so, like I said, it wasn't just the courts as much as the parents and the Native American. And all that Joan and I ever wanted to do was help this kid who needed help.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And last, I'd like to introduce everyone to Judge Phyllis Frye. Phyllis Randolph Frye is an Eagle Scout, an Army veteran, a licensed engineer, a licensed attorney, a municipal judge, a father, a grandmother, and a lesbian wife. After disclosing her trans identity led to her forced resignation from the Army and harassment from her neighbors, Phyllis earned an MBA and JD from the University of Houston, where she partnered with Houston's then Mayor Pro Tem Johnny Goyen and Councilmember Ernest McGowan on a successful campaign to repeal Houston's cross-dressing ordinance. Phyllis then launched her own practice in criminal defense and transgender law. She created the International Conference on Transgender Law and Employment Policy. In 2010, the mayor of Houston appointed Phyllis to the municipal bench, making her the country's first openly transgender judge. She has received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Transgender Foundation of America, and she has been dubbed by Shannon Minter the grandmother of the transgender movement. So let's watch Phyllis's video.
In 1989, there was something going on with Randall's grocery store where there had been a boycott by the community, the gay and lesbian community, which I felt I was part of. And it was successful. Well, at the same time, Randall's had also done something very discriminatory against a transgender person. The community here in Houston was fixing to call off the boycott. And I said, wait a minute, they haven't atoned for the way they treated this transgender person. And I was told by a lot of people, we appreciated everything you've done for us, but transgender is not what we're about. Boy, would that ever shock me. And that's really what turned me into the militant that I became, fighting the gay and lesbian community. 1995 was really a pivotal year. HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, had no love for the transgender community, and they were pushing Senator Kennedy to introduce the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, called ENDA, E-N-D-A. It left out transgenders. And by that time, we were raising so much stink for HRC that HRC, said, we're going to have to meet. We went to DC and met with them, and they said, this ain't going to happen. Sorry about that. That's when I got on the internet. That's when I became known as the filibuster, P-H-Y-L-L-A-B-U-S-T-E-R. So I just began collecting email addresses, and my list just got longer and longer and longer and longer. And whenever HRC would have its fundraisers around the country, there were always transgender people local there that were carrying their signs, that were picketing. Everywhere HRC went, there were pickets outside for years and years and years. Finally, around 2008, I think it was, a new ENDA bill was going to be introduced. And it was going to leave transgenders out again. And every organization, national, regional, and statewide, with the exception of HRC, said no, transgenders are going to be included. And that was when the dam broke. That's when HRC was convinced. That was when transgenders finally got in to the rightful place that we should have had since the Stonewall riots in 1969, when transgenders threw the first high-heeled shoe that started the movement. Since 2008, HRC has been a friend. HRC has bent over backwards inclusion. They now demand of Fortune 500 companies, if you want the HRC highest grade, you have to have policies which include gender identity and gender expression, and your insurance carrier cannot exclude transgender. I'm not at war with HRC. Bygones are bygones, but it was a long slog. I told my wife what I want on the gravestone is she opened doors. What else can you ask for?
Welcome, Phyllis. It's so great to see you here. Phyllis, the name of your video, and you speak in your video about a long slog. How does one endure a long slog?
Well, my long slog started in 1972, and it's still ongoing. So that's 51 years. How does one survive that? Well, it helped that for 48 of those years, I was with a wonderful woman named Trish, who knew that I was trans before we married, and married me anyway, and stayed with me. And she would hold me when I cried. She would advise me. She would concur or disagree over things that I felt I needed to do. And it was Trish that really helped me through that very long slog. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, and I miss her. But, you know, I continue to do public speaking. And if people want to know more about the slog, I would advise them to Google my name. And when you Google my name, Phyllis Frye, you will find a ton of stuff. Mostly is the New York Times article where in 2016, I was on the front page above the fold of a Sunday edition of the New York Times. And I don't know too many people who have been in that position that haven't been in some kind of legal trouble. And I was not in any legal trouble. Also, you can Google Trish, T-R-I-S-H, Frye, legacy, and you will get her story. And so if you want to know as a family member or as a spouse or whatever, how you can be supportive of your transgender loved one in the middle of their long slog, you can read that article. Or here's the book. Last year, Mike Long and Shay Tuttle thought that my story was worthwhile. They're published authors, and they published Phyllis Frye and the Fight for Transgender Rights. It's my story that they wrote up. You can get it online just about anywhere. And I hope that you will read it, and I hope that you will share what you learn.
And I know that Emma and Trinity have copies of your book now too. Let's get everyone in the grid and let's keep this conversation going. I also, Phyllis, I don't know how much you're looking at the chat, but there is so much love for you pouring in, and it's really beautiful to see. And I also see that some audience questions have already come in. And I want to actually start this group conversation with this question from Rob. Rob says, it's disturbing how state political leadership is targeting trans people, especially kids. And it seems like the opening salvo in an effort to target LGBTQ people more broadly, despite the size and diversity of Texas. I'm not sensing that this is motivating LGBTQ Texans to push back. What gives? What can we do to get the community more motivated? And I think that this is, the three of you are in very different areas of Texas: Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, and Shannon is in East Texas. So what are your thoughts on Rob's question from the vantage point of where you are in Texas? Any of you can start.
Well, my answer is always the same. Come out of the closet. Get your transgender friends to come out of the closet. You can't be supported by your loved ones or your acquaintances if they don't know who you are. You've got to come out of the closet. It's 2023. It's not 1961 when Shannon was born and we saw those pictures of Shannon growing up. You didn't see any pictures of me growing up, but when I was 4 years old and one of the neighborhood girls painted my fingernails and toenails to my delight, and I went home because I felt pretty and caught sheer hell because boys aren't supposed to feel pretty. That was pretty much when I started dealing with my gender difference. And I did not have the internet and I did not have the support. And it wasn't until I was 25 years old that anyone knew that I was trans, because I didn't tell anybody. But you've got, this is not back then. This is now. Come out of the closet. Somebody else talk.
I'll hop in. Rob, I saw that question in the Q&A and I was like, oh, I'm so glad he asked that, because I think you're right on both counts that that this is really an opening salvo. What I'm worried about, I'm just gonna be very candid here because I'm deeply worried about this, is that the attacks on trans people in Texas now are so hateful. They're so vicious. They're so extreme. I mean, we all live here. We all know how Texas can be. And even for those of us who are kind of used to it, this is a whole new level of hateful and scary and ugly, that I'm worried that LGBT people maybe are having what maybe a natural human reaction to be like, oh my gosh, I was going to distance myself from these people because they're under this kind of attack. And maybe if I just, stay back and don't say anything, they're not going to turn their sights on me. I mean, that is natural human reaction, but I hope people will. I'm just going to plead with our lesbian, gay, bisexual, brothers, sisters, and compatriots, please try not to do that. Transgender people really need allies and support right now. And I do think they're not going to stop with transgender people. I think this is about demonizing our whole community. But we've got to stick together. Other thing is, I was sharing this with Judge Frye before we came on. I think some people in the gay community may have some questions, may not know that much about some of these issues about medical care for transgender kids, and maybe holding back for that reason too. And I'm just going to beg people, if you're not sure, if you have questions, if you need more information, please get it. I mean, you can ask me or lots of other people, because we need everyone to be up to speed on this and really fighting back against this. I mean, this is a really the worst possible time for trans people and trans kids in Texas, and we need you.
Thank you, Shannon. Emma, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, I too want to say thank you to Shannon and Judge Frye. And it's interesting. You're right. We're needing to come out of the closet. And there are different ways to do that. You know, when I'm looking into the Black community, you have Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. They were two different ways of fighting for the movement, but they were fighting nonetheless. And so what we have to do is, right, we can't sit back and watch the people go by and say mean things about us and not say anything. And you know, it's interesting. I was reading one time, and they were talking about gay people, gay and lesbians, and the statement was that that gay and lesbian trans people are your favorite sons and daughters, and they really are, because we spend our entire life trying to show you that we love you, and in hopes that you will love us back. And so we're baby boomers now, a lot of us, and so there are a lot of us here. But I think, as the old saying, charity begins at home. We need to make sure our families understand who we are, and that we love them, and we hope that they will love us in return.
Yeah, thank you for that, Emma. And that makes me think of something that I just learned recently, which is that LGBT people are more likely to end up being the caretakers for older parents for a variety of reasons. You know, maybe an assumption that the person is more available, that they won't have the same commitments as cishet people are assumed to have. And so this makes me wonder, what are the ways that there's so much, you know, this legislation is specifically attacking youth in a lot of ways, but the upper limit of what is considered youth keeps getting moved up and up. It's like, oh, anyone under 25, anyone under 30. It's clearly not as though it's going to stop when kids aren't kids anymore. And so what are the things that maybe people aren't thinking about in terms of how this is affecting older adults specifically?
Well, I speak on this a lot because I am an older adult. I'm 75 years old, and I've been dealing with this issue. And since this is AARP, I want to spend a few minutes on the fact that most older trans people have not had below the waist surgery of any kind because it's so expensive. Now, I'm not fussing about the expense, but what I'm alerting you to right now is that whenever one of us goes into a nursing home or goes to a hospital or goes to a senior center and they require extra care, the caretaker sees above the sheets an expectation of gender that does not match what they find below the sheets when they are changing diapers, doing catheters, bathing, or whatever. And as a result, and I know this is true because about 20 years ago, I had to go to the hospital on something not having anything to do with trans, but I was in the hospital for over a week. And I was constantly misgendered. I was constantly called sir. And those are in the psychological realm called microaggressions. And when you're in a helpless situation, which I was in, and the people that I described are in, and 10 or 15 times a day, they are insulted because people won't take the time to get their gender correct. It's very, very difficult to deal with. And nursing homes and hospitals and nursing classes and doctor classes that deal with trans people need to learn that our gender identity is who we are, and they need to treat us with respect when we are victims, because we are. And as a result, I can't quote you a study, but I know from a lot of people that I do know, and I've talked to, and I've heard from, that they will not go to a nursing home. And even though they need medical assistance, they will not go to a hospital. And so we need to address that issue for our transgender sisters and our transgender brothers. I mean, look at that handsome face on Shannon Minter's mug. And you know what's going to happen when he goes to a nursing home. First time they lift up the sheet to bathe him or do anything else, from then on, they're going to call him her, and they're going to call him Ms. And then we get to the religious part. There's always somebody on every floor, I went through this, who feels that they have the religious duty to come into my room and try to save me. Every damn day I was there, there was somebody that felt they had to come and save me with their religion. So things need to change.
Emma, what do you think about this one?
Yes, as a member of the LGBT community who has reached the senior years, I am concerned that by losing a partner or spouse, not having children, the tendency is the one who is still alive here goes back into the closet. And if you remember, if you look at the way COVID for that first year of 2019, it put a lot of people back in the closet and brought a lot of depression to the front. So for me, I think, and I'm blessed to be in a city where, have we got it all together? No, but there are organizations that you could belong to that's geared totally for seniors. There's the Coalition for Aging here in Dallas, and they have lunches together and for dinners together. There's the Resource Center, there's a Senior Resource Centers, there's Thrive. So we are beginning, the fighters that we were with AIDS in the 80s, we're now become senior citizens, and this is our new fight, is that we belong. We belong here, and you shouldn't have to hide. And the neat thing I have thought about with the Coalition for Aging is that they do that. They vet facilities to make sure that they're treated with respect. So that is a very concerning thing. As you grow older, you know, when your partner dies or when you don't have a lot of family, you go, where am I going to, how am I going to live? How am I going to be treated? And I think there are a lot of sisters and brothers out here who want to help you, who wanted to share those stories with you. And so just give us a call. I know in Houston and Dallas, I'm sure there are a lot of things. Unfortunately, Shannon, you may have to come to maybe a larger city, but there's help here. And we need to get out of ourselves and let people know that we care about them. And particularly, I think we should start with our families first.
Emma, I love what you just said. And I'm just thinking, yes, I mean, so many of us of our generation were so involved in fighting for people with HIV and AIDS. And I mean, has there ever been a more stigmatized, mistreated group of people? And we learned so much from, I mean, I did. That's where I learned how to do any kind of advocacy, and that we could bring those same skill sets and just ferocity of commitment to advocating for older LGBT people. I love that. That is a very inspiring vision. And I was thinking when you were talking, and Judge Frye too, that yeah, we're making progress on that in cities, like even in states, red states like Texas with Dallas and Houston. And you're right too, that for those of us who live outside of those cities in rural areas, it is, boy, it is daunting. It is daunting. I'm not sure what would happen to me if I had to go to an emergency hospital visit or something where I live. It would not be good. It would not be good. But I wonder if I just put out there if there's some way to for the organizing that's going on in the cities to maybe do some more connecting with those of us who are in rural areas, even to have like to be able to call somebody and get an advocate where you are could be a make or break thing. I've just been struck living out here, how many older people, period, not just LGBT people, but older people, period, have no one looking out for them. People living in dire poverty and isolation. And then, if you're LGBT, you can just compound that. So I would love to see our brilliant, creative, incredibly politically adept community just thinking about how we can get more resources out to older folks living in outside big cities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something about faith, because when you read my book, the book was finished a couple of years ago, and at the time that it was written, I had lost God for a couple of decades. About 2 years ago, I discovered that she was there the whole time. I started going back to church, but on Sunday mornings in my church, the rector always asks, is there anybody that needs their prayers? And what I frequently say is, yes, we need to pray for the hearts of the people that hate us. We need to pray for the people, their hearts to be opened up. But we need to pray for those people who hate us, because so many of them hate us out of their own religious belief. And so I just feel that way. I'm also excited about the parents, because right now in Austin, there are a lot of transgender people that are in Austin, activists in Austin that are fighting against these bills. And I started doing that in the 1990s. I don't do it now because there's so many other people that do it so well. But it's the parents of these children right now who are leading the fight in Austin for trans rights for their children. And so if you're a praying person and you're listening to this broadcast, please pray for the hearts of those who hate us.
Amen. And I've seen a few people, and this was also one of my questions, asking what can allies be doing right now. I want to say, and I don't remember where I learned this, maybe I learned it from one of you on the panel, but that people are more likely to receive higher quality care. Older adults are more likely to receive higher quality care if a young person is visiting them. So something concrete that people can do is, if you're a younger person, or if you have a young person in your life, is to be visiting LGBT older adults, because that increases the odds that they'll receive better care. But I want to also put it to the panel. This is a two-for question, but they feel related to me. What else can allies be doing, and what is giving you hope? I know the parents.
They can get the book and learn.
Yeah.
Now I want to make sure everybody
Be like
knows.
Emma and Trinity, get the book.
I want to make sure everybody knows I don't make a dime out of this book. I didn't write it. I don't sell it, but it is my story, and it's a story of the fight for transgender rights amongst the LGBT community when we were not inclusive. And if you want to know the story, you want to learn about transgender people, get the book.
Okay, in answer to my feeling about the questions about the allies is that we need everybody. I remember in a session with Governor Richards, the late Governor Richards, and one of her many statements that has stuck with me is she said that when everybody is able to sit at that table, the jokes will stop. And what we have to understand that we deserve to sit at that table. And so that we are very much in need of allies to allow us to help us put another chair to that table so we can sit there as well. Also, what gives me hope, Trinity and New Millenniums, and Generation Z. Because back in the day when we were coming up, we just did what we accepted and did what our parents told us to do. And you kept that thinking until you had your own kids and you tried to do the same thing again. But Generation Z and New Millenniums, they don't think that way. Thank you for the good part of social media that allows them to, if you don't, mom and dad is not telling us the whole story, we can go and look at historically what's going on. And so I am very hopeful that we can do better and we will do better. I remember sometime my spouse, Joan, makes a statement, as long as there's hope, as long as there's breath in the body, there's hope in the mind. So we're not done and all is not lost, but you have to be willing to get out of yourself. And you have to be willing to get those straight friends or allies to come in there and hold your hand as well. And may I say this last thing here too, regarding the need for people. One of the things that has helped me the most, and I'm very blessed to have, is I have a group of family, and I have a group of friends who are very close-knit and they love me, they love Trinity. And so to those people who don't have that DNA type family, you have a great opportunity to find the family of choice. And that could be friends, that could be family members with the DNA who understand what you're going through and want to help. So there's always family to be had out here. Everybody would love to be able to have DNA and love to be treated by family members who are same blood type, same DNA, but that's not realistic. But choose then the family of choice so that you're surrounding yourself with people who will love and respect you as well.
Christy in the chat is saying something so true that, you know, every time there's a bad bill in Austin, there's a lot more people testifying against it than for it, but it still passes. And we need more allies outside of our community. We really do. We have to reach out to, you know, even our, well, not even, but to our straight family and friends and get them involved. You know, I have a ton of family here in Texas, and I need to do better about reaching out to them. They would speak up, but they're not going to discover these bills on their own or how to testify against them. We have got to make a very intentional effort to expand our circle of allies. In terms of hope, I just want to say I am so hopeful. I can't believe how lucky and fortunate and blessed I am at this stage of my life. I've gone to move back to my hometown, and I have met with nothing out here but love and support and warmth. And it has defied all stereotypes about what people may have about people who live in these conservative rural communities in Texas. These are good people, they're loving people, and given a chance, they will be supportive.
Recently, I spoke at I live in a senior center, and I'm out of the closet as being trans. I'm very well accepted. Recently, I spoke at another senior center about my biography and about my life and about transgender issues. And I was told the next day that the organizer said that 3 of those people, and of course they're all older than I am, 3 of those people told her that they had trans grandkids. And they were so glad that I spoke about what I said. I mean, we're everywhere. We just got to come out to our allies.
Yeah. And Phyllis, when you started that story, I thought you were about to go into a different story about how your community celebrated you and a step that you that you took in. And we don't have to tell that story, but if you feel open to sharing it, I feel like that celebration could be a lovely moment to end
I
on.
had genital surgery almost 2 years ago, and my girlfriends who live here, and I have a lot of girlfriends who live here and boyfriends too, but I meet every week on Saturdays with a group of 7, and we call ourselves a coffee clatch. And on the celebration of 1 year of having my genital surgery, they had a party for me, and they called it a pussy party, and they had cake with a big cat on it, and it was very loving. You know, these are my girlfriends, and they're all straight people. So, you know, there's a lot of love out there. You just gotta look for it.
Yes, and show it when you feel it, when you have that love. Show the love. We are at time, and so we're going to bring this to a close. And I just want to offer such tremendous gratitude to Phyllis and Emma and Shannon for this incredible conversation, and to AARP for having us, and to everyone who's here live and everyone watching the recording. This recording will be sent out, and we just so much love for all of you and gratitude. Thank you.